Midnight Ward, the recordings of Building E. In 2016, a young architecture student named Nadia was assigned to document abandoned structures for her university project. One location stood out on her list: Building E, a sealed-off wing of an old hospital shut down in the early 1990s after a fire. Locals warned her not to go, claiming strange sounds still echoed from inside at night. Nadia, curious and stubborn, dismissed the stories as superstition. She arrived just before sunset. The hospital grounds were overgrown with weeds, and the air carried the stale scent of mold. Building E stood farthest from the main complex, tall, windowless, with the entrance chained shut. Yet the chains looked oddly new, as if someone had recently replaced them. Nadia set up her camera, documenting every angle for her research. As she circled the building, she heard a faint tapping from inside, rhythmic, slow, almost like someone knocking on metal. She froze. The building had no electricity and no active rooms. She called out, thinking perhaps another student was filming nearby. No reply, only the tapping, echoing through the hollow structure. On the building's left side, she found a small maintenance door slightly open. There was no reason for it to be unlocked. The hospital administration kept this wing sealed. Curiosity overpowered caution. She pulled out her flashlight, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. Inside was absolute darkness. Dust floated in the beam of her flashlight. Old patient beds were stacked against the walls, some with torn straps dangling from the sides. Papers covered the floor like fallen leaves, patient files, prescriptions, burnt medical photos. The tapping had stopped. The silence felt unnatural, thick and heavy. On a broken desk, she found a single file in surprisingly good condition, labeled, Patient 74, not discharged. No name, just the number. Inside were notes describing violent behavior, nighttime episodes, and repeated attempts by the patient to leave their room without using the door. Nadia frowned. The final entry chilled her: patient missing after fire. Last seen in Ward 7. No remains recovered. Guided by morbid curiosity, she followed the hallway signs to Ward 7. The air grew colder with each step. Her flashlight flickered, forcing her to tap it until it steadied. The smell changed too, from mold to something metallic, like rust or blood. When she reached Ward 7, the door was melted and warped, likely from the fire decades ago. Before she entered, the tapping sound returned, louder this time, coming from behind the ward door. 3 slow taps, then silence. 3 taps again. Someone, or something, was signaling. Nadia swallowed hard, pressed record on her camera, and stepped inside. The room was mostly empty except for hospital beds fused to the floor by melted metal. Deep scratches covered the walls in erratic patterns. But the most disturbing thing was the far corner. A bare section of wall with a square hole, just large enough for a human to crawl through. The edges were blackened, almost burned. The tapping came from inside the hole. Her instincts told her to leave, but she leaned closer. The hole exhaled a cold draft. Then, faintly, she heard it, breathing. Not steady, not normal. Ragged, wheezing, as though lungs had forgotten how to work. Nadia's camera shook as she recorded, zooming into the darkness of the crawlspace. A voice suddenly whispered from the hole, "Is the fire out yet?" Nadia stumbled back, nearly falling. The breathing stopped. The tapping stopped. Silence crushed the room. She backed toward the hallway, keeping her flashlight trained on the hole. Then a hand, pale, ash-stained, unnaturally thin, reached out from the darkness. Nadia bolted. She sprinted through the hallways, tripping over rusted equipment, banging into beds and carts. Behind her, something crawled rapidly, scraping against metal, dragging its body, gaining speed. She burst through the maintenance door into the cold night air and didn't stop running until she reached her car. At home, she reviewed the footage. Most of the audio was muffled, distorted by static. But at the exact moment the hand appeared, a voice overlaid the recording, low, broken, almost pleading. "I didn't escape the fire, but you did." Nadia slammed her laptop shut. She submitted her project without mentioning Building E. She avoided the hospital entirely. But 2 weeks later, a maintenance report circulated online. the maintenance door she entered had been welded shut again. Workers claimed they heard knocking from inside and assumed it was pipes shifting. One night, while Nadia was working in her apartment, she heard it, 3 slow taps on her wall. Then silence. 3 taps again, the exact rhythm from building E. She pressed her ear to the wall. On the other side, someone whispered, "Room 74, not discharged."